Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Erin and I am currently an active duty Coast Guard officer as well as a full-time mom, wife, and daughter of the king. I started this channel when I was a cadet at the Coast Guard Academy back in 2020, sharing day in my life videos and informational videos about the Coast Guard. And now I'm continuing to share pieces of my story to encourage, equip, and help you. Today we are talking about a huge topic: being pregnant while on active duty. When I got pregnant with my first, I was totally overwhelmed. I didn't know the policies, I didn't know the military medical system, and I definitely didn't know what to expect as far as the tension I'd feel trying to be both a good mom and a good officer. Because there is so much to cover, I'm going to be turning this into a 4-part series. Today we're going to be talking about policy on pregnancy in the military as a whole, and in the next video we'll get into the medical side of things, how to navigate Tricare both as an active duty member and as a dependent. Then in the third video, since I've been asked so much about it, we're going to be unpacking home birth on Tricare and everything that's involved in that process. And then the last video will cover military life after pregnancy. So things like pumping, nursing, going back to work, the emotions associated, the leave policy, getting care for your baby, all those sorts of things. So make sure you subscribe to see all of those videos. But today let's get into the practical steps that you need to take when you first find out that you're pregnant and the DOW and Coast Guard policies that you need to know so that you can be focused on growing your baby and not stressing over regulations. A quick disclaimer before we get started: obviously policies are always changing and they're going to be different based on who your command is, and every command is going to interpret the policies differently. And so please take everything that I say with a grain of salt and make sure that you're up to date on the current policies. Also, my daughter is here joining us, so if you hear her, she's just adding her 2 cents into this video. Before we jump into the regulations, congratulations, you're pregnant. What a blessing it is to be used as women by God to bring forth life into this world. Whether it was highly anticipated or a surprise, God has had your baby's days planned from the start, and life is something to be celebrated. So what should you actually do after you see those 2 pink lines on the test? If you're on Tricare Prime and live within 30 minutes of a military hospital or clinic, you'll have a primary care manager or PCM. So first things first, call your PCM to schedule a blood test to officially confirm the pregnancy. The military won't start any of your specialized care or policy protections until a military provider confirms it. I'll get into the specifics of finding a pregnancy-specific provider and how that works in my next video. Just a few basic things. The second that you find out you're pregnant, if you're not already, start taking a high-quality prenatal vitamin. Your baby is developing very rapidly in those first couple weeks, and taking a prenatal can really help their development. My favorite vitamins are from the brand We Heart Nutrition. They are a Christian pro-life company, and their vitamins are made in the most bioavailable form, so your body is actually getting the nutrients it needs to sustain life. I will link them down below. A note for the very beginning of pregnancy: with my first, I got so sick, like sicker than I ever expected to get during pregnancy. Nausea kicked my butt. The best way that I found to fight it, especially as I went into pregnancy with my second, is to keep eating. If crackers and small snacks are all that you can stomach, fine, but protein is really what I recommend. The more high quality protein that your body gets, and just whole foods in general, the better you will feel. I promise you, even if you feel like eating nothing and nothing sounds good to you. We Heart Nutrition also makes a wholesome balance supplement with ginger, vitamin B6, and turmeric, which are all really good things to help fight the nausea. That supplement made a world of difference to me with my second pregnancy, so definitely check that out. And if you can keep your body moving at least a little bit each day, great. A lot of women think pregnancy automatically means stop exercising, but in most uncomplicated pregnancies, staying active is actually encouraged. Obviously, follow your doctor's guidance, but movement can really help with energy, nausea, sleep, labor preparation, and recovery. So like everything. But first trimester exhaustion is also very real, so make sure that you're prioritizing quality sleep as well wherever you can fit that in. Once your military doctor confirms that you're pregnant, they will issue you a pregnancy profile, which is also known as a CHIP. This is a medical statement that legally restricts certain duties to keep you and your baby safe. For most branches, you need to notify your command by week 20. In the Coast Guard, it's recommended that you would notify them 2 weeks after you take a pregnancy test, but I think the max that you can wait in the Coast Guard is 12 weeks if you have a specific reason for waiting. Your doctor will probably put you on light duty for privacy's sake until you're ready to announce your pregnancy to your command. I also want to say this because I know a lot of people feel really anxious about telling their command that they're pregnant, especially if it's not a planned pregnancy. Maybe you're worried how people will react, whether they'll think you're less committed, or whether it will affect opportunities. Those feelings are incredibly common, but remember, even if it was unexpected, pregnancy is not a failure of professionalism. The military has policies for this because women serve and have families. Take the time you need early on, but don't be afraid to advocate for yourself once you're ready. Pregnancy can absolutely affect the timing of schools, qualifications, deployments, or certain career opportunities temporarily, and it's okay to acknowledge that honestly. It doesn't mean that your career has to be over. It just means that your priorities and timelines have to shift. My first was a surprise, and you better believe the first thing running through my brain when I got those 2 lines on the test was like, What's my command gonna think? What does this mean for promotion and rotation timelines and all that? That was my first thought, not the joy of a child, the what if questions. And I really wish looking back that I wouldn't have worried about that, because everything works itself out. You find a new rhythm. And again, people should be excited for you. This is a natural part of life. It's a beautiful part of life, and children are such a blessing. All that being said, I'm making this video because I know that it can be a confusing time and there's a lot you have to figure out. So what exactly does that pregnancy profile restrict? A lot of people don't realize how much they're actually protected. So let's break down the actual duty limits. First, physical limits will generally be restricted to lifting no more than 15 to 25 pounds. By the 28th week of pregnancy, you're restricted to a 40-hour work week. In the Coast Guard, all of your watch standing hours count towards that cap. So if you have duty, that's considered a 24-hour day. So don't let them overwork you in the third trimester. Another Coast Guard specific nuance, which is really nice, is prenatal leave. Prior to your due date, your command can authorize up to 30 days of leave if recommended by your doctor. This leave is not a given, but depending on your command and your unit needs, many moms end up stopping work a few weeks before their due date. Now let's talk about operational limits. Across the board, you cannot remain on shipboard or sea duty past 20 weeks. In the Coast Guard, even before 20 weeks, cannot be on a cutter if medical evacuation to an emergency facility would take more than 3 hours. If you're a pilot, the restriction varies based on the service and your specific aircraft, so make sure you look into the specific regulations if that applies to you. The last thing I'll mention in this section is the chemical and environmental hazards. If you're a mechanic, an aviation tech, or even just doing maintenance around a ship, you have to be careful. The policy restricts exposures to heavy metals like lead, solvents like benzene, and even high noise areas. So if you work around these hazards, make sure that you're being cautious and in constant communication with your command. Bottom line, if your workspace feels even remotely unsafe, or if you're getting lightheaded or anything like that, make sure that you advocate for yourself and for your baby. Funny story related to that, the reason that I actually took a pregnancy test with my first was because we were going to the range the next day to shoot, and they always say at the range, like, if you're pregnant or could be pregnant, then you probably shouldn't shoot today because of the lead exposure. So that's the reason I even took a test. Didn't expect it to be positive, but I was being cautious and knew that it was a possibility, and so I wanted to be sure. So definitely, again, err on the side of caution. You're not trying to get out of things or any of those things your brain might be trying to convince you you are. You're just doing what you need to do to keep your baby safe, which is the first of many things you'll do for the rest of their life as their mom. Next, let's talk about fitness standards. You are exempt from fitness tests and weigh-ins while you're pregnant, and the weigh-in exemption extends 12 months after you've had the baby. For PT test postpartum, the DOW is moving towards a 12-month exemption for the PT test as well. For whatever reason, the Coast Guard currently has a 6-month exemption for the actual physical fitness test while keeping the 12-month weight exemption. The logic is that your heart and muscles can usually recover fast enough for you to pass a PT test by 6 months postpartum, but your hormones and body fat distribution take up to a year to normalize. And obviously, this is so varied person to person, depending on the pregnancy, depending on your birth, depending on the recovery, depending on if you're breastfeeding, like all those different factors, but I get it. We do have to uphold the standard. Two last things to note. One is that the enlisted members get a clothing allowance for maternity uniforms, so make sure you look into that. Officers, we have to buy our own, but definitely make sure that you check out a lucky bag or ask a friend or check the exchange if they have any on sale. Like, just make sure you ask before you buy them full price, because a lot of times you can find a set cheaper than buying brand new. For context, I think in my first pregnancy, I started wearing my maternity uniforms a few weeks into the second trimester, and then a little sooner with my second. So you should definitely think ahead and prepare for when you need to switch over to that uniform. And then you are authorized to wear them up to 60 days after you return to work as well. And I know this sounds crazy because you may have just taken a pregnancy test, but if you think you'll need childcare eventually, especially at a CDC, a child development center, make sure you look into that early, like right now, because I know spots fill up super fast. We've been lucky enough to not have to do the typical traditional childcare system route. We've had family who've watched our kids, but I know that things fill up super fast and that it can be stressful for a lot of families. So look into this earlier rather than later to save yourself some stress. At the end of the day, being pregnant in the military is both a privilege and a challenge. There are protections and accommodations in place that genuinely help, but there's no way around the fact that military service requires sacrifice, flexibility, and resilience, especially once you become a parent. One thing I wish someone would have told me sooner is this: you are still valuable to your unit, even during seasons where you physically can't do everything that you normally would. Pregnancy doesn't erase your experience, your leadership, or your contribution. One practical thing I would encourage you to do early on in your pregnancy is to find other military moms, either in person at your unit, at your church, or virtually. Like if you know a friend from a past duty station that you can keep in touch with on the phone, they will become one of your greatest resources because they understand the realities of balancing military life and motherhood in ways that a lot of friends might not understand. If you are specifically looking for a Christian military mom community, every month through our podcast, Mind Your Mission, my friend Liz and I host a monthly Zoom call, and many of those women fit all three of those categories. I will link our podcast info down below. We would love to have you. Military motherhood is not easy. It stretches you in ways that you may have never expected, emotionally, physically, spiritually, and professionally. But becoming a mother also has a way of clarifying what matters most. So if you're watching this and feeling overwhelmed, scared, or unsure of how this is all going to work, just know that many women have walked the road before you, and you do not have to figure it all out alone or overnight. God gives us 9 months of pregnancy for a reason. Take it one appointment, one regulation, one trimester at a time. Next week, we'll be diving into the medical side of pregnancy in the military, Tricare, referrals, getting off base for care, prime versus select, all of it. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss that video. Let me know in the comments if you have any specific questions about being a mom in the military. With that, keep looking up, and I'll see you guys next time.